This is Comic Picks by the Glick.
And I'm your host, Jason Glick.
Hey, Jason, what do you have on tap for us today?
Well, it's like I've got like talking about like a series that I've never actually talked about on this podcast before. That is The Flash. But well, I understand it's been written by a lot of like writers I've liked in the past, like Mark Waid, who has done arguably the definitive run on this series like for like almost like close to a decade. But it's like, like as years have gone by, like I've not actually like, picked up on like a lot of like the other like writers like who've been writing it, like such as like Jeff Johns or Joshua Williamson for whatever reason for another, because like I yeah by the time like like I got into like Johns like like he had like gone through the most of his run on the Flash, and Joshua Williamson. Well, it's like it took me a while to like finally get invested in him. But when it was announced that Simon Spurrier was going to take over the Flash, like from Williamson's run, like I thought, hey, I'm gonna do this because hey, Spurrier is like a writer who I really enjoy and who like generally has like and like an interesting take on like on like the characters that he's written. Like his even if like he tends to like kind of run them into the ground. Like when he wrote like X Force, it was like kind of like an indictment of their like action heavy approach. It lasted like 15 issues, and then there was his like like run X Men Legacy, which is like being a Legion centric run, which I thought like wow, you're doing like a Legion like a series all about Legion, like wow, like good luck getting like that to last more than like 6 issues, and he actually get like like 25 out of them. So good for him, man. That's like that's great. But like it was still like like very specific and like like very like particular to like his tastes, and I've generally enjoyed like Spurrier's work. Like he's a guy who when I see he's doing something, I will like gravitate towards it. His work on it's like on doing on reviving like the Dreaming, or basically like like the like latter day like version of the Sandman was fantastic. Basically a great revival of everything I loved about the series. Like prior like prior to his take on it. Um and also like his other like various like image like centric community series, and also his work for Boom as well has been great, such as like his work on like like Coda, which is like his follow up miniseries to that was great like last year, in the sense that it not only did it like address our current political and social situation quite well, but it also like provided like a way forward for us to like hey like adapt, like engage with our current social situation as well, which I really enjoyed, and that some people like could like stand to learn a thing or two from. Tom King, I'm looking in your direction for when I talk about Animal Pound in the podcast. Um, Not next time, but you know like like after that from now or a while out. But yeah, it's like Spurrier is a guy who I like, but he's also like someone who maybe just can tend maybe just like will just lead you around by the nose a bit in order to like make his point. He'll make you like work in order to get you to like enjoy what he's doing, and that's what we have with the Flash. Because what do we know about Wally West? Well, he's the fastest man alive. It's like, and he's like a guy who really enjoys being like being a superhero. And at his current like status quo in the DC universe, he's also like one of the few family men like in the DCU. Like he's married to it's like he's married to his wife it's like Linda. It's like, and they've got two kids, Irie and Jai, and they've got like a newborn, Wade. It's like who's just too basically because while he was gestating in Linda's womb, was able to like, give her like super speed powers as well. And that's when we come into this current Flash status quo. Basically, Wally is just being a family man, but also like doing all sorts of superhero stuff because he just loves being a superhero, and that kind of also tends to distract him from being like the family man stuff. And also his wife is just like dealing with um like not being a superhero anymore. And well, it's like there's forces that are conspiring to use that all against him, like with with Wally, just like the very first Flash story that like Spurrier writes is basically a story of it's like of Wally just like doing a lot of like crime solving, or it's like superhero business, while he and Linda have a nice night out in the town away from the kids. And while it's like this looks like it's going well, it's like then things go like bad when he runs into like a mirror that is being set up by like one of his rogues. Surprise, surprise! It's the mirror master. And this mirror also winds up like illuminating to him like various like alternate futures and realities. And by the time he finally gets back to Linda, well, it's obvious that he's been doing like stuff that's other than paying attention to her. So that's kind of like the setup, set up for the series, and then it just gets more complex and bizarre from here, because then you get like introduced concepts like the stillness, like alien gods, like who are just like trying to like find a way to die, and who were like originally burst from the Speed Force back in the day. And like then there's these other it's like alien concepts that are just it's like thick, that are just birthing out from from the Speed Force as well. It's like, and it's weird, it's strange, and it's also um so kind of it's like kind of what Spurrier said was like he's going to do with the Flash is he wanted to make the Flash into strange, weird cosmic horror, because you've got that like birthing weird it's like weird creatures like from the Spirit Force that couldn't be be punched into submission. It's like, well, that was like what he was trying to do. And then you've got like guys like Gorilla Grodd showing up and sending cops into orbit around the sun, like in stillness. It's like, well, it's like it just gets weirder and stranger from there. Especially when you start considering the fact that all the other people in the Flash's orbit, like Zen Speedster, Max Mercury, like getting weird Buffalo themed visions of death. It's like, and and Wally also encountering it's a still garden like of concepts where he can just go there and just be at peace from everything. And also like like his daughter just being her own rebellious self, his son Jai deciding that hey, I don't want to be like a superhero, and I've also got my own destiny as a universal shaper here. It's like, and his wife Linda, like just dealing with her leftover like affection for being a like a speedster. Oh, and his mentor Barry Allen, also just doing his own stuff, but also dealing with the fact that like that his protege is like surpassing him. And oh, the rogues are doing their own business as well, because at the very end of the first volume, well, it's like turns out the Reverse Flash, Eobard Thawne, is also like at is also doing stuff like here as well. What I'm getting at here is like the first two volumes of Spurrier's Run on the Flash are a lot. He is basically like telling you a story that is all about the Flash, like dealing with impending cosmic horror, and his rogues shaping him, trying to shape him into be like a weapon used against like an unknowable entity that is also trying to like utilize Wally for his own ends. There's all sorts of crazy like stuff going on here, and you're going to have to like be paying a lot of attention in order to like get what's going on here because like Spurrier like does his best to try and like bring in all of the like the flashes here, and it's like if you're willing to like do the work, yeah, like, it's a solid story that basically, like, does make sense and that he does try to, like, do something different here and try to, like, push the, Flash mythology forward, specifically in the sense that, like, there's a, force out here that's trying to kill the Speed Force, like, for reasons, but even then, like, Speed Force is also, going to, give birth in the form of a, big happy dog. So, it's I mean, it's like I said, if you're willing to pay attention to like everything that like Spurrier is doing here, because there's also a lot of like familiar superhero stuff. Like I like the bits where like where where the rogues who are like vindictive against Barry Allen are trying to like use him for his own use him for his like for their own ends, and then his like his girlfriend Iris basically says, "Oh well, yeah, I understand. Like Barry, you're either gonna like shake this off and like triumph against them, or if you don't, and then like I'm just going to like die immediately." Like that's like a fun bit of self awareness right there. And of course, Barry does shake things off because he's a superhero and all. Why wouldn't he? But like this first arc is just like a lot of like big like epic cosmic horror like superhero ideas that on one hand, it's like I appreciate Spurrier's ambition in trying to tell us like all these story all these like concepts here and trying to like hey make his mark on the Flash. Um will any of these like actually last? Good question. Because reading these first two volumes, it kind of feels like Spurrier was like hedging his bets in the sense that he was maybe guaranteed like a 1 year run on the Flash, and so he just told the story that would last like say 13 issues. So on one hand, I respect that. Hey, no sense in like doing like a multi-year storyline when you're not sure how long it's gonna last. But if you're like afraid that you're just gonna like like wash out after a year, then hey, tell us like a year-long story. And Spurrier does that, and I respect that. And these first two volumes do work out in that regard. And also, it's like they also have some pretty solid art, from like some Mike Diodato Jr., who illustrates like the first six issues of the main story, and then Ramon Perez and Vasco Georgiev, who do the back half. Georgiev actually like winds up illustrating like the majority of the rest of Spurrier's run, and I appreciate that because he's got like a good solid like a cartoony style that like I like seeing, and it's like he does like and it does a good job like emoting and like like depicting the emotions of the cast, which is great. It's like and also he's like like in line with like the absolute utter like craziness that that Spurrier is like like up for depicting. Because here's the thing: while the first year of Spurrier's storyline is like the most crazy and like most demanding of his work, well, second half, well, okay, it's not as insane, but it's like it's still one another like 12-issue storyline. And basically, it starts out with the Flash family just going on vacation to the underground like barbarian paradise of Scartaris that Warlord like inhabits. And while initially it's like it sounds like hey, this is like like the family is just like gonna go there and just like, hey, it's a underground paradise with like dinosaurs. It sounds like fun. Well, turns out that Wally has found a way to disperse himself of the responsibilities of this because he's found a way to like basically like split himself into two so that while one version of himself can go and hang out with his family and just like be a good dad to all everyone involved, well the other version of himself can also just maintain his Justice League responsibilities as well, of which there is a worldwide outbreak of hate as well, and that turns out to be tied into the main villain of the storyline, which is Eclipso, the villain who can just bring out the bad in any hero, but one who just has suddenly found a nice equilibrium like while living in Scarteris, someone who can just like purge out his hatred and just like live as like a hey I am just like being a good guy up until things don't go I guess planned, and the like in the first half of the storyline basically ends with him being a like being a reincarnated as a big bad, and just like rediscovering his hatred, and also just like realizing that hey, if Darkseid like is dead, because that's the way the like current storyline for DC is at this point in time, because well remember like this is a post DC All In storyline where Darkseid had like died, quote unquote, died in order to give birth to the Absolute Universe, and with like him being like out of the picture now, like guys like Eclipso can just like do their own thing, and that's what we're going at here. And when we get to this second half of Spurrier's second year storyline, which wow, it's like okay, one thing I did appreciate about the first the difference between the first two volumes, that there's like a fairly decent like line of continuity between the two of them. When you get to like reading the distinction between like volumes 3, which is As Above, and volume 4, Bad Moon Rising, you're just kind of like, oh wait a second, did I miss something? It's like, well, because like well, you've gone from just like Eclipso announcing his like dominion, and then now we're getting into like a big like flash war against dominion against Eclipso, because it turns out that between volumes 3 and 4, like Wally has been learned to like split himself into like an army of flashes that have like basically just trying to fight against like Eclipso. It's like in his absorption of the baby, the Speed Force, that was like Wally's dog. Yeah, this is the thing. It's superhero comics. Getting used to it. So so yeah, the second volume like does like have a big like continuity hiccup that you're gonna have to like buy into and believe that, and yeah, like Spurrier hasn't disregarded what has happened previously, not by a long shot, but it's just like really there's a big disconnect where you get from volume 3 to volume 4. But when if you are willing to like buy into that, like there is like a good solid like through line like throughout all of this, especially when it comes to like like addressing like Eclipso's machinations. Because on one hand, like at one point when you think that oh they've solved things, so they figured out Eclipso's like need for affection, acknowledgement issues, which hey cool, that's nice. This is like a very superhero thing that they do, but then you realize that oh wait a second, by doing this, it's like they actually like like empowered him, and and actually like and he's like not actually like any worse off than he was before. That's actually pretty clever. It's like I like that. And also I do like the fact that like Eclipso's like big plan is to just like bring the moon into a like a big like solar eclipse with between the Earth and the sun in order to make everyone suffer because hey, he's a bad guy. This is what he does, and this is like true to his nature as Eclipso. And like, but in the end, like we do get like like some self recognition from Molly about like what's right here, like what he needs to do in order to save everyone, and not just like like do right by his family, but also right by himself as well. And also like Spurrier gets to indulge his appreciation of like other notable runs in the DC universe because well there's a certain um like character from a very different of character run like say the Starman that figures in here, and that is so notable that they actually had to like get a separate issue written by someone else in order to accommodate this character's inclusion here. Well, and to be fair, I think that Alex Packneedle's work on incorporating this character into the storyline is actually pretty solid, and actually like kind of does kind of square with Spurrier's like incorporation of the character both before and after his inclusion like in the storyline. If you're wondering why I'm being so evasive about this, well, I think that like the surprise is worth preserving here. And well, overall, it's like like there's a lot of like weird like work here, like being done. Like a lot of like like a lot of like specialized like continuity knowledge that's being done in order to incorporate like all this stuff here, all these like all this continuity, all these ideas. But I did I did enjoy Spurrier's work here. It's like he does have like I mean, like he does have a solid plan for both of his arcs. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of work and a lot of attention that you're going to need to invest like in here. And yeah, there is a certain amount of defensiveness like at the end of things because when you get to the final final part of the like of the second volume, like you can see that like that Spurrier was like, kind of addressing like, like people's feelings about, like, hey, what are you doing here? This is like kind of crazy. This is not what I expect from a Flash storyline. And yeah, it's like I get that. But speaking of someone who like it was not been like a Flash follower up to this point, I can admit that, like these two storylines are are pretty solid. I especially in light of what I've read from the writer up like to this point. So if you're looking for something, if you're, I can only imagine if like you're someone who's like been like a longtime Flash follower, and then you read Spurrier's work, and you're just kind of like, what the hell is this guy doing? So yeah, I can understand that, but I think these two storylines do work on their own terms, and it's like they're pretty. It's like they're pretty entertaining, when you consider them all like in their it's like in their it's like an overall continuity. Um, yeah, it's like it's kind of weird, it's strange, but still like they're pretty entertaining. And also, it's like I gotta admit, it's like I am gonna be following like the Flash, beyond this point because yeah, the next storyline is basically a DCKO tie-in from longtime Flash writer Mark Waid, who's also co-writing with like Christopher Cantwell, which that should be its own kind of like interesting seeing these two guys work together, even though they did actually like work pretty well together in like in the DC in the Justice League event We Are Yesterday. But then after this, we're getting Ryan North and Gavin Goodry like doing their own run, which I think it should be like a much more digestible Flash run, simply because North has done like a really good job of like doing like like very focused, enjoyable science focused one shot or interconnected stories on the Fantastic Four. um, like over at Marvel, and seeing him apply that sensibility to on the Flash, I think I think it sounds like a pretty good idea for like a pretty good solution for like features like Flash success. So yeah, I'll be following like the Flash from here on out. But even then, it's like I enjoyed Spurrier's work on the Flash. But yeah, I'll admit that it's a lot of work to enjoy. But ultimately, it's something I did enjoy, and maybe we'll be hearing about that in another couple of weeks or so. So there you go.
Okay. Well, um, do you know what you're going to be talking about next time?
Well, hopefully, we'll be talking about something together next time, and that is the fourth volume of Void Rivals in person, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be lots of fun. So we'll catch you guys all on Comic Picks by the Glick.
There it is, everyone.